December 16, 1944. 05:45 hours. Houffalize, Belgium. Private Frank Vukasin pressed himself against the frozen stone wall of a Belgian farmhouse, his breath forming clouds in the pre-dawn darkness. Through the mist rolling across the Ardennes forest, he could see them German infantry advancing with the confidence of veterans who had fought from Poland to the gates of Moscow. They carried Kar98k rifles, the same bolt-action design their fathers had used in the First World War. Precise, reliable, proven in 1,000 battles. What these German soldiers did not know, what their entire tactical doctrine failed to account for, was that the mathematics of infantry reload time had fundamentally changed. While they would need 15 to 20 seconds to reload their 5-round internal magazines with stripper clips, Vukasin could slam an 8-round en bloc clip into his M1 Garand in 3 seconds. That 12-second differential would prove more decisive than courage, more critical than experience, more lethal than any advantage the Wehrmacht believed it possessed. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The German faith in the Kar98k stemmed not from ignorance, but from rational analysis built over decades of military success. The bolt-action rifle represented the culmination of nearly 50 years of refinement since Paul Mauser's original 1898 design. German military doctrine, codified in their manual Die Richtlinien für Führung und Kampf der verbundenen Waffen, emphasized precision over volume. The German soldier, they taught, was a marksman, not a volume shooter. One aimed shot at 400 meters was worth 20 scattered rounds at 100 meters. This philosophy had carried the Wehrmacht to victory across Europe. The Mausers' controlled feed, bolt action provided absolute reliability in mud, sand, snow, and rain. Its 5-round internal magazine, loaded via stamped steel stripper clips, represented mechanical perfection achieved through incremental improvement. German soldiers practiced the reload sequence until it became automatic work, the bolt to lock it open, withdraw a stripper clip from the leather ammunition pouches, position it in the rifle's guide slots, press the rounds down with the thumb, remove the empty clip, close the bolt. Under ideal conditions at a training range, this sequence took 7 to 10 seconds. In combat, with cold fingers, incoming fire, and the chaos of battle, it extended to 12 to 20 seconds. German training manuals acknowledged this reload time, but considered it acceptable. Their tactical doctrine assumed that engagements would occur at 300 to 800 meters, where slow, aimed fire mattered more than volume. Machine gun teams would provide suppressive fire during rifle reloads. Defensive positions would allow soldiers to reload under cover. And most critically, enemy forces would also be using bolt-action rifles with similar reload times. This last assumption that their enemies faced identical reload constraints represented the Wehrmacht's critical blind spot. John Garand's en bloc clip system, adopted by the United States Army in 1936, solved the reload problem through elegant simplicity. Rather than individually loading cartridges into an internal magazine, the entire 8-round clip inserted directly into the rifle's action from the top. When the 8th round fired, the bolt automatically locked open, and the empty clip ejected with a distinctive metallic ping. The soldier retrieved a loaded en bloc clip from his cartridge belt, pushed it down into the magazine with his thumb, and released the bolt. The entire sequence took 2 to 3 seconds under ideal conditions, 4 to 6 seconds in combat. The mathematical advantage was crushing. In the time a German soldier reloaded his 5-round Mauser, an American soldier could reload his 8-round Garand, fire all 8 shots, and begin reloading again. This represented not merely a quantitative advantage, but a qualitative transformation in infantry tactics that German commanders would fail to anticipate until American bullets taught the lesson in blood. The first encounters came at Kasserine Pass in Tunisia during February of 1943. Despite the tactical German victory, American forces were green, poorly led, and outmaneuvered after action reports submitted to German High Command noted disturbing patterns. Lieutenant Colonel Rudolf Lang, commanding reconnaissance elements of the 10th Panzer Division, filed a report dated February 22, 1943. American infantry, he noted, maintained continuous rifle fire during withdrawal. Expected pauses for reloading did not occur as anticipated. German advancing troops sustained casualties during phases when the enemy should have been reloading. The warning went unheeded. The High Command attributed the heavy rifle fire to panic shooting, Americans wasting ammunition in their fear. What German commanders interpreted as inexperience was actually the sound of superior technology operated by frightened but adequately trained soldiers. Every time German infantry advanced expecting a pause in enemy fire, the natural rhythm of bolt-action warfare they had known since 1914, American rifles continued firing. United States Army historians later analyzed captured German casualty reports from Kasserine Pass. The data revealed something German staff officers had missed. Casualty rates among German infantry during pursuit phases, when Americans were retreating, were 40% higher than expected based on previous campaigns against British forces armed with bolt-action Lee-Enfield rifles. The Americans were being beaten tactically, but they were killing German soldiers at unexpected rates simply by maintaining fire during movements that should have forced reload pauses. The Italian campaign of 1943 to 1944 provided extended exposure to American firepower, but German tactical analysis remained fixated on terrain, weather, and operational planning. The rifle-level mathematics of combat continued to be overlooked. At Monte Cassino, in December of 1943, German defenders of the Gustav Line filed reports that United States Army intelligence would capture months later. An officer of the 1st Parachute Division's 3rd Regiment wrote in his unit diary that an American patrol encountered before dawn maintained rifle fire without pause. He expected to suppress them with machine gun fire while his riflemen reloaded, but American rifle fire did not pause. 3 men were wounded before the patrol withdrew. The ammunition expenditure by the enemy, he noted, appeared wasteful but effective. The word wasteful appears repeatedly in German assessments. Wehrmacht doctrine, forged in the ammunition scarcity of the First World War's final years, emphasized conservation. The sight of American soldiers firing and reloading so rapidly struck German observers as profligate, even reckless. But the Americans were not wasting ammunition. They were exploiting a tactical advantage that German doctrine had no answer for. During the Gothic Line battles of August 1944, a captured German lieutenant from the 715th Infantry Division was interrogated by United States intelligence officers. The transcript, preserved in National Archives documents, reveals dawning awareness. When asked what surprised him most about American infantry tactics, he responded that their rifles fired too quickly. German soldiers would advance between enemy shots, as trained, but the shots did not stop. Men were hit during movements that should have been safe. When asked if he had identified the weapon causing this, he confirmed it was the American Standard rifle. They had thought only American automatic weapons fired so rapidly, but their riflemen maintained fire like machine gunners. Even when German soldiers identified the problem, the institutional response remained inadequate. Individual units adjusted tactics, staying under cover longer, reducing the aggression of advances, relying more heavily on mortars and artillery. But these were reactive adaptations, not doctrinal changes. The fundamental German approach to infantry combat assumed enemy rifles would need time to reload. That assumption was killing German soldiers in numbers that mounted with each engagement. The Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944, brought the firepower disparity into devastating focus. The 352nd Infantry Division, defending Omaha Beach, consisted of experienced troops in prepared positions, with pre-registered fields of fire and clear fields of observation. Every tactical advantage belonged to the defenders. Yet American forces, despite suffering horrific casualties on the beach, established a foothold through sheer firepower volume. Combat reports from the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions document that even while taking casualties, American troops maintained suppressive fire against German positions. The division commander, killed on June 2, 1944, had filed operational reports in the preceding months, revealing growing concern about Allied rifle capabilities. In a report dated April 15, 1944, captured by United States forces after D-Day, he recommended that defensive positions must account for sustained enemy rifle fire, that previous assumptions about reload intervals required revision, and that increased depth of defensive positions and additional machine gun emplacements were needed to counter enemy firepower advantage in small arms. By the time these recommendations might have been implemented, it was too late. The hedgerow fighting that characterized the Normandy campaign created engagement ranges of 50 to 150 meters distances, where reload speed mattered more than long-range accuracy. American tactical doctrine, developed at Fort Benning and refined through combat, emphasized marching fire advancing while maintaining continuous fire from every rifleman. This technique was nearly impossible with bolt-action rifles, where soldiers needed to stop, work the bolt, and re-aim after each shot. Post-war United States Army operational research studies found that American rifle companies in Normandy expended an average of 5,000 rounds of rifle ammunition per day during active combat. German rifle companies, using bolt-action weapons, expended approximately 1,500 rounds. This 3.3 to 1 disparity was not waste, it was capability. Americans could maintain suppressive fire because reloading did not create vulnerable pauses. The German response to this firepower disparity revealed the depth of their doctrinal inflexibility. Rather than acknowledging that their basic infantry weapon had been rendered obsolete, German tactical manuals issued in mid-1944 simply advised deeper entrenchments and increased reliance on machine guns and mortars. The Kar98k remained the standard infantry weapon because Germany lacked the industrial capacity to replace millions of rifles, even if they possessed a better alternative ready for mass production. The Gewehr 43, a semi-automatic rifle developed in response to the Soviet SVT-40, entered production in 1943. But with only 402,000 produced by war's end compared to the 4.4 million M1 Garands manufactured by American industry, the G-43 equipped perhaps 5% of German infantry at best. The revolutionary Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle, arguably the most advanced infantry weapon of the war, suffered similar production limitations, with only 425,000 manufactured. Most German soldiers in 1944 carried the same bolt-action rifle their fathers had used in 1918. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 demonstrated the complete superiority of rapid reload capabilities in modern combat. Germany's last major offensive launched with veteran troops, overwhelming numbers at the point of attack, complete tactical surprise, and weather conditions that grounded Allied air power. Every advantage that could be provided to bolt-action infantry had been maximized. It was not enough. On December 17, 1944, near Houffalize, Belgium, Private Frank Vukasin of the 331st Infantry Regiment, 83rd Division, found himself in close quarters fighting with German infantry. A photographer captured the moment immediately after Vukasin reloaded his M1 Garand, the empty N-block clip visible on the ground. A fresh 8-round clip just slammed into the rifle. The image, preserved in the National Archives, became iconic not for its dramatic quality, but for what it represented, the 3-second reload that kept an American soldier in the fight. German tactical reports from the Bulge, captured after the battle, reveal the Wehrmacht's final reckoning with American firepower. A report from Kampfgruppe Piper, dated December 19, 1944, stated that American infantry holds positions longer than expected. That volume of rifle fire prevents German infantry from effectively supporting armor advances. That casualties among dismounted troops were unacceptably high during approaches that should be covered by superior machine gun fire, and that the enemy appears to have no reload interval vulnerability. The mathematics of reload time had become inescapable. At Bastogne, the encircled 101st Airborne Division held its perimeter, partly because every American soldier could maintain nearly continuous fire. German attacks following traditional doctrine advancing under machine gun cover Rushing during expected enemy reload pauses were repeatedly shattered by American rifle fire that simply never stopped long enough for safe movement. Staff Sergeant Day Turner of the 101st Airborne received the Medal of Honor for actions on January 4, 1945, near Bastogne. The citation describes Turner killing German soldiers attempting to climb stairs in a farmhouse. Turner fired his M1 Garand until it pinged empty after 8 shots. German soldiers pushed past their dead comrades, expecting Turner to need 15 seconds to reload. Instead, Turner slammed a fresh clip into his Garand in 3 seconds and resumed fire. The citation does not mention reload time, but the speed of that reload determined whether Turner lived or died. Small unit actions throughout the Ardennes revealed a consistent pattern documented in United States Army combat interviews conducted immediately after battles. German infantry, trained in fire and movement tactics that assumed pauses between enemy shots, found no such pauses existed. American soldiers could fire while moving, reload in seconds, and maintain continuous suppression. A combat interview with a sergeant from the 2nd Battalion, 327th Glider Infantry Regiment, conducted January 28, 1945, provides direct testimony. Germans would wait for the pause, he said. You could see them timing it, getting ready to rush, but with the Garand there is no pause. You fire 8 rounds, the clip comes out with that ping, a new clip goes in, you are shooting again. Maybe 5 seconds total. The Germans never figured it out. They would run when they thought you were empty, and you would cut them down mid-rush. The tactical impact extended beyond direct fire engagements. German combined arms. Doctrine required infantry to advance alongside tanks, protecting armor from anti-tank teams. American rifle fire made this coordination extremely difficult. German panzer units reported throughout the Bulge that accompanying infantry could not maintain contact with advancing tanks due to sustained small arms fire. Tanks advancing without infantry support proved vulnerable to bazooka teams and artillery observers. During the Mortain counteroffensive in August 1944, Germany's last major offensive before the Bulge, the 30th Infantry Division's after-action report documented the reload advantage explicitly. Enemy infantry attacks were repeatedly broken by sustained rifle fire from defensive positions. Enemy forces appeared to expect pauses in fire that did not materialize. M1 Garand reload speed allowed continuous suppression of advancing infantry while maintaining defensive fires. The M1 Garand's tactical advantages would have meant nothing without the industrial capacity to produce both rifles and ammunition at unprecedented scales. Springfield Armory and Winchester Repeating Arms produced 4,040,800 M1 Garands during the Second World War. Peak production at Springfield Armory reached 3,936 rifles per day in January 1944, more than 1 rifle every 22 seconds, around the clock. This production rate dwarfed German capacity for semi-automatic rifles. The Wehrmacht produced approximately 462,000 Gewehr 43 rifles during the war, a ratio of 8.7 M1 Garands for every German semi-automatic rifle. While 100% of American frontline infantry received M1 Garands by 1943, fewer than 5% of German infantry ever received semi-automatic weapons. But rifles alone were not sufficient. The faster reload speed demanded exponentially more ammunition. Lake City Army Ammunition Plant, operating at full capacity by 1944, produced over 3 million rounds of 30-06 Springfield ammunition daily. American divisions in Europe required approximately 10 times the small arms ammunition of equivalent German units, not because Americans wasted ammunition, but because they could fire and reload faster. The ammunition supply chain supporting the M1 Garand represented a logistical achievement of staggering complexity. The famous Red Ball Express truck convoy system, operating from August to November 1944, transported 412,000 tons of supplies to forward units. Ammunition constituted a substantial portion of this tonnage. American soldiers typically carried 80 to 100 rounds of rifle ammunition compared to German soldiers' 60 rounds, with constant resupply available through established logistics chains that stretched back across the Atlantic Ocean. This ammunition abundance enabled American tactical doctrine that seemed wasteful to German observers, but proved devastatingly effective in practice. Reconnaissance by fire shooting at suspected enemy positions without confirmed targets allowed American units to force German troops to reveal positions or remain pinned down. An American platoon could expend 1,000 rounds searching a hedgerow, and the rapid reload capability meant suppression could be maintained while other elements maneuvered to flank or assault. By late 1944, German tactical manuals began acknowledging the new reality their soldiers faced. A training directive issued October 15, 1944, captured by Allied forces, contained revised defensive guidance. American infantry, it stated, possesses significant firepower advantage in rifle-caliber weapons. Defensive positions must provide complete concealment and overhead cover. Do not expose troops to small arms fire expecting reload intervals. American rifles reload faster than previously encountered weapons. Maintain defensive fire with all available weapons to prevent enemy approach. These adaptations represented tactical retreats rather than solutions. German units on the Western Front increasingly avoided offensive operations requiring infantry assault. Post-war United States Army intelligence analyses noted that German forces after September 1944 became notably more defensive-minded, avoiding direct firefights with American infantry when circumstances permitted any alternative. The Wehrmacht's inability to field equivalent weapons stemmed from multiple factors beyond simple industrial capacity. German small arms development had focused on machine guns, the MG-34 and MG-42 as the primary infantry weapon. The rifle was considered a supporting arm for precision fire at distance. This doctrinal choice, logical in 1935 when the rearmament program began, proved catastrophic when facing an enemy where every rifleman functioned as his own base of fire. Even the revolutionary Sturmgewehr 44, despite its select fire capability and intermediate cartridge innovation, suffered from Germany's late recognition of the fundamental problem. Development began in 1942. Limited production started in 1943. Mass production never materialized before the Reich's collapse. By war's end, most German infantry still carried bolt-action rifles designed before the First World War, facing American soldiers whose rifles reloaded in 1/5 the time. The human cost of this technological obsolescence reveals itself in casualty statistics. United States Army operational research conducted after the war analyzed casualty rates across different battle types. In meeting engagements, surprise contacts where both sides scrambled to gain fire, superiority American forces consistently achieved favorable casualty exchange rates despite similar training levels and tactical skill among the opposing forces. The study identified reload speed as a critical factor in these encounters. In the crucial first 60 seconds of contact, when surprise was mutual and neither side held prepared positions, American infantry could fire 40 to 50 rounds per soldier. German infantry could fire approximately 15 to 20 rounds in the same period. This 2.5 to 1 advantage in initial volume often decided the engagement before heavy weapons entered the fight. The side that could put more bullets downrange in the first minute generally forced the other side to seek cover, surrender the initiative, and accept a reactive defensive posture. German soldiers recognized the disadvantage at ground level, even when their commanders failed to address it systematically. Post-war interviews with Wehrmacht veterans reveal consistent themes running through their recollections. A soldier from the 275th Infantry Division, interviewed in 1946, provided testimony preserved in occupation government records. "We knew their rifles were better," he said, "faster, but what could we do? We had our Mausers and 5 rounds. They had 8, and that clip system. You fire 5 times, start reloading, and they are still shooting. By the time you have pushed the stripper clip down, maybe 10, 15 seconds, they have reloaded and are firing again. In close combat, That is everything. The psychological impact extended beyond simple firepower calculations. German infantry learned to fear American rifle fire in ways they did not fear British infantry armed with bolt-action Lee Enfields. The continuous nature of American fire, the absence of predictable pauses, created constant threat perception that affected tactical decision-making at the individual level. German soldiers could not time their movements to enemy reload cycles, because no reliable cycles existed. Every moment under American rifle fire was equally dangerous. There was no safe interval to exploit. This psychological pressure compounded physical casualties. Soldiers who cannot predict safe moments for movement become hesitant, reactive, unable to seize fleeting tactical opportunities. American commanders noted in after-action reports that German infantry in late 1944 and early 1945 seemed less aggressive, less willing to press attacks, more inclined to dig in and defend rather than maneuver and assault. Some of this reflected declining troop quality as casualties mounted and replacements grew younger and less trained, but some reflected the learned behavior of soldiers who had discovered that rushing American positions during expected reload pauses resulted in death. After Germany's surrender on May 8, 1945, United States Army operational research teams conducted extensive studies on infantry combat effectiveness. The findings, published in classified reports that remained restricted until the 1970s, confirmed what soldiers had known experientially. The M1 Garand provided decisive firepower advantage primarily through its reload speed and the tactical flexibility that speed enabled. Statistical analysis revealed American rifle companies generated 340% more small arms fire than German equivalents of similar size. Average engagement duration increased from 5 to 10 minutes in battles between bolt-action equipped forces to 30 to 45 minutes when Americans participated, because American infantry could advance under their own fire support without waiting for machine guns or mortars to provide covering fire during movement. General George Patton's famous assessment that the M1 rifle was the greatest battle implement ever devised reflected not just the rifle's individual qualities, but its transformation of infantry combat doctrine. The weapon enabled American tactical concepts emphasizing firepower, mobility, and aggressive action. Every American soldier became a significant firepower node, rather than primarily an ammunition carrier for machine gunners. Squad tactics could be more flexible because fire and movement did not require careful coordination of who shot while who moved. Individuals or pairs could provide their own covering fire. German military professionals writing after the war acknowledged their failure to appreciate the semi-automatic rifle's importance. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German General Staff, noted in his memoirs published in the 1950s that the Wehrmacht had underestimated how technological superiority in basic infantry weapons could overcome advantages in training, experience, and tactical skill. The American semi-automatic rifle, he wrote, changed fundamental combat mathematics. By the time German leadership recognized this reality, Germany lacked the industrial capacity and time to respond effectively. When West Germany rearmed in 1955 as part of NATO, the newly formed Bundeswehr immediately adopted automatic weapons. First, the FN-FAL-designated G1, then the G3 rifle in 7.62mm NATO. No German military force would ever again field bolt-action rifles as primary infantry weapons. Bundeswehr planning documents from the early 1950s explicitly referenced Second World War lessons. Future German forces, the document stated, must never again face technological disadvantage in basic weapons. Infantry firepower must equal or exceed potential adversaries at the individual soldier level. The M1 Garand's success influenced military thinking worldwide in the immediate post-war period. The Soviet Union accelerated development of the SKS carbine and AK-47 rifle. Britain adopted the EM2 bullpup design before political pressure forced a switch to the FN-FAL. France fielded the MAS-49. Every major military power recognized that semi-automatic or automatic rifles represented the minimum acceptable standard for modern infantry. The age of the bolt-action battle rifle had ended permanently, killed by the mathematics of reload time demonstrated across thousands of engagements from Tunisia to the Elbe River. The Korean War proved these lessons correct when combat resumed in 1950. American forces, armed with M1 Garands, initially held significant advantages over North Korean and Chinese forces, equipped with bolt-action rifles, and captured Japanese Arisaka rifles. The advantage diminished as Communist forces received Soviet semi-automatic weapons and Chinese production ramped up, but the basic principle remained constant across every engagement. Reload speed determined firepower volume, which determined tactical outcomes at the squad and platoon level where most combat actually occurred. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The technical innovation that made this transformation possible deserves closer examination. The N-block clip system, initially controversial within United States Army ordnance circles during development in the 1920s and early 1930s, proved its worth through sheer practical effectiveness in combat conditions. When John Garand first proposed the design, many weapons experts argued for detachable box magazines similar to the Browning automatic rifle. The concerns they raised seemed reasonable at the time. Soldiers might lose clips more easily than they could lose heavy magazines, critics argued. The internal magazine system added weight and mechanical complexity to the rifle. Single-loading cartridges without clips would be nearly impossible in the field. And most famously, the distinctive metallic ping sound of ejecting clips might alert enemy soldiers that an American rifleman's weapon was empty, creating a vulnerability window during reload. All these concerns proved either irrelevant or wrong when subjected to combat testing. The on-block clip system provided faster reloads than any magazine system of that era, 2 to 3 seconds versus 4 to 6 seconds for magazine changes on other semi-automatic rifles. There were no magazines to damage, lose, or malfunction. Manufacturing required only simple stamping operations rather than complex machining. The clips fed reliably under all environmental conditions, and ammunition packaging proved more efficient because clips took minimal space in supply crates compared to bulky detachable magazines. The ping concern that German or Japanese soldiers would hear empty clips eject and immediately attack the temporarily disarmed American proved entirely baseless. Multiple post-war studies found no documented cases of American soldiers killed due to the clip ejection sound. Combat noise levels rendered the sound inaudible beyond a few meters. Squad dispersion meant other American soldiers continued firing even when one individual reloaded. And the rapid reload time, 3 to 6 seconds, gave any attacker an impossibly narrow window to exploit, even if they somehow heard the distinctive ping through the chaos of battle. Interestingly, post-war surveys of American combat veterans found that soldiers valued the ping as a clear auditory signal to reload, rather than viewing it as a vulnerability. In the confusion of combat, that metallic ejection sound provided instant feedback that the rifle was empty without requiring the soldier to count rounds or check the action. Some veterans reported deliberately ejecting partially loaded clips to ensure full ammunition capacity before entering particularly dangerous situations, though this practice was discouraged due to ammunition waste. The technical simplicity of the N-block clip represented 1930s American industrial philosophy applied to military hardware, designed for mass production. Achieve good enough quality rather than perfect quality. Optimize for ease of training rather than complexity. Each clip required only 5 stamping operations to manufacture. Soldiers could be trained to reload the M1 in under an hour of instruction. The clips themselves cost pennies to produce and could be discarded without concern if damaged or lost in combat. Compare this approach to the German Gewehr 43's detachable magazine system. While theoretically superior, the magazine could be reloaded separately while a second magazine was in use. German forces rarely received more than 1 magazine per rifle. Combat reports indicate G43-equipped soldiers typically had to reload their single magazine with stripper clips between engagements, completely negating any speed advantage the detachable magazine should have provided. The theoretical superiority of German engineering was undermined by practical logistics limitations. The M1 Garand's reload speed enabled tactical concepts that had been impossible or impractical with bolt-action rifles, fundamentally transforming American infantry doctrine. Marching fire became standard practice. Soldiers could advance while maintaining aimed fire on enemy positions. With bolt-action rifles, advancing troops had to pause to work the bolt after each shot, disrupting their movement and making them stationary targets. Semi-automatic rifles with fast reloads meant advancing troops could shoot, reload while moving, and maintain suppressive fire continuously. Fire and movement could be executed at smaller unit levels. Traditional bolt-action doctrine required squad or platoon-level coordination. One element would establish a base of fire, while another maneuvered. The M1 Garand enabled fire and movement at the fire team level of 4 to 5 men, or even by individuals. A single soldier could provide his own covering fire, reload rapidly while moving between positions, and continue advancing without requiring coordinated support from squad mates. This tactical flexibility allowed more aggressive, fluid operations that German doctrine struggled to counter. Suppression without dedicated machine guns became tactically viable. A single American rifle squad of 12 men with M1 Garands could generate 160 to 200 rounds per minute of aimed fire. This volume matched or exceeded the suppressive capability of a single machine gun position. American infantry did not depend solely on machine guns for suppression. Every rifleman contributed meaningful firepower that forced enemy soldiers to keep their heads down. German squads, in contrast, relied almost entirely on their MG42 for suppression, with riflemen providing only precise supporting fire at targets of opportunity. The vulnerability window during reload, the most dangerous moment for any infantry soldier, was reduced by 75% compared to bolt-action rifles. With bolt-action weapons requiring 15 to 20 seconds to reload, soldiers needed substantial cover or coordinated supporting fire from squad mates to survive the reload interval. The M1 Garand's 3 to 6 second reload could be completed in the time it took to move between covered positions. Soldiers could reload while displacing, while advancing, while conducting any tactical movement. The reload became a minor pause rather than a critical vulnerability requiring tactical planning. In defensive situations, the reload advantage became overwhelming in its tactical impact. A platoon of 40 men with M1 Garands could maintain continuous fire indefinitely with soldiers reloading on individual schedules rather than experiencing collective reload pauses. German attacking forces never found the pause in American fire they expected based on bolt-action warfare experience. This sustained defensive fire proved critical at Bastogne and throughout the Ardennes campaign, where encircled American units held perimeters against numerically superior German forces. The M1 Garand represented America's distinctive approach to modern warfare, leveraging industrial capacity to provide technological advantages to citizen soldiers drafted from civilian life. The rifle cost approximately $85 to manufacture in 1944, comparable to the Kar98k's production cost in German marks converted to dollars. But American factories produced M1 Garands 3 times faster than German factories produced Kar98k rifles, due to several industrial advantages. Specialized machinery was designed specifically for Garand production rather than using general-purpose machining tools. Assembly line methods borrowed from automotive manufacturing allowed workers to perform single repetitive operations rather than complete rifle assembly individually. Standardized parts with tight tolerances allowed complete interchangeability. Any M1 part would fit any M1 rifle without hand-fitting. And simplified maintenance procedures required minimal training, enabling drafted soldiers to perform most field repairs without specialized armorer skills. A damaged M1 could often be repaired by swapping components from other rifles, a capability that German armored forces learned to envy. Kar98k repairs sometimes required skilled armourers because hand-fitted components were not always interchangeable between individual rifles. American logistics provided parts replacement. German logistics required skilled craftsmen. This efficiency extended throughout the supply chain, supporting American infantry. Standardized 30-06 ammunition simplified logistics compared to German forces using multiple cartridge types. Interchangeable parts reduced repair complexity and training requirements. Simplified maintenance procedures meant soldiers could perform most repairs in the field rather than sending weapons to rear area depots. The M1 Garand was designed for mass armies of civilians, conscripted for the duration soldiers who needed effective weapons but lacked time for extensive training in complex weapon systems. The strategic impact was profound and far-reaching. America could simultaneously equip its rapidly expanding army with modern semi-automatic weapons while maintaining production of tanks, aircraft, ships, and all other war materiel. Germany, facing resource constraints and strategic bombing of industrial facilities, could not match this production breadth even with simpler weapons. German industry had to make choices about allocation of limited resources. American industry produced everything. By 1944, American industry was producing nearly 4,000 M1 Garands daily, over 3 million rounds of 30-06 ammunition daily, thousands of vehicles and aircraft monthly, and hundreds of ships quarterly, all while maintaining civilian production adequate to prevent economic collapse or serious domestic hardship. This industrial achievement meant that every American soldier reaching the front lines carried a weapon technically superior to what his enemy possessed. Technological advantage multiplied training advantages, morale advantages, and numerical advantages into overwhelming combat power. In the final months of the war, as Germany collapsed under pressure from east and west, captured documents reveal Wehrmacht officers finally acknowledging the depth of their infantry weapons disadvantage. A tactical assessment dated March 15, 1945, from OKH Oberkommando des Heeres, the German Army High Command stated that American infantry firepower superiority had proven insurmountable. Semi-automatic rifles in universal issue provided sustained fire capability German forces could not match. The recommendation followed that future German military forces must prioritize individual soldier firepower, and that bolt-action rifles were inadequate against modern-equipped adversaries. The recommendation came too late for the Third Reich, but it shaped post-war German military thinking profoundly. When the Bundeswehr formed a decade later, this lesson from 1945 determined weapons procurement from the beginning. On the individual level, German soldiers who survived the war carried bitter memories of facing technologically superior enemies. A non-commissioned officer from the 12th Volksgrenadier Division, captured in the Ruhr Pocket in April 1945, told United States interrogators something that captured the essential truth beneath all the statistics and tactical analysis. "You want to know why we lost?" he said. "Ask your factories. We had good soldiers, good officers, sometimes even good positions. But your rifles, every American soldier had what took 3 of us to match. When you attacked, your rifles never stopped. When we attacked, you just kept shooting. Our machine guns could not suppress you because your rifles provided their own suppression. Technology won your war, not bravery." His assessment, while perhaps embittered by defeat, contained fundamental truth about the infantry combat experience. The M1 Garand had not won the Second World War alone. Allied numerical superiority, air power dominance, industrial capacity, and strategic mistakes by Axis powers all contributed to victory. But in the intimate, deadly space of infantry combat where individual soldiers fought and died, the ability to reload 8 rounds in 3 seconds rather than 5 rounds in 15 seconds made the difference between life and death thousands of times per day, across every front where American infantry engaged German forces. The mathematics were simple and brutal. In 20 seconds of combat, a German soldier with a Kar98k could fire 5 rounds, spend 15 seconds reloading, and perhaps fire 1 or 2 more rounds if he survived that long. In the same 20 seconds, An American soldier with an M1 Garand could fire 8 rounds, spend 3 seconds reloading, fire 8 more rounds, spend 3 more seconds reloading, and fire another 6 rounds before the German soldier finished his single reload. 22 rounds versus 7 rounds in the same time interval. The American soldier had 3 times the opportunities to hit his target, 3 times the suppressive effect on enemy forces, 3 times the control over the tactical situation. Multiply that advantage across every infantry engagement from Normandy to the Elbe, from North Africa to the Po Valley, and the cumulative effect becomes clear. The M1 Garand's en-bloc clip did not just provide a tactical advantage, it provided the mathematical foundation for American infantry dominance throughout the European theatre. German soldiers learned this lesson in the harshest possible way through casualties, defeats, and the gradual realization that their proven weapons and tactics had been rendered obsolete by American industrial innovation. The profound irony is that Germany, the nation that had innovated blitzkrieg and modern combined arms warfare, lost partially because they overlooked the importance of basic infantry weapons development. The Wehrmacht's emphasis on machine guns and artillery as primary firepower sources left German riflemen with weapons scarcely improved since 1898. Their tactical doctrine assumed that machine guns would provide volume of fire, while riflemen provided precision. This assumption proved fatal when facing an enemy where every rifleman provided both volume and precision through rapid reload capability. The American approach seemed wasteful by pre-war German standards. Equipping every soldier with a complex semi-automatic rifle and providing unlimited ammunition appeared to be the product of American industrial excess rather than sound military thinking. German military theorists before the war had dismissed such approaches as wasteful of resources that could be better spent on tanks, aircraft, and heavy weapons. The combat experience of 1943 to 1945 proved American industrial excess was actually sound tactical investment. After the war ended, captured German general officers, interviewed by United States Army historical teams, repeatedly cited American infantry firepower as a critical disadvantage they could not overcome. Not American numerical superiority, though that certainly mattered. Not air power, though that proved decisive at operational and strategic levels. Not even artillery, despite American superiority in that domain. But the simple fact that American riflemen could reload faster and fire more rapidly than German riflemen, armed with weapons little changed since the previous war. The en-bloc clip had obliterated the stripper clip. The 8-round capacity had defeated the 5-round capacity. The 3-second reload had rendered the 15-second reload tactically obsolete. And with those technical advantages, an entire philosophy of warfare built on assumptions dating to the trenches of 1914 had been proven fatally outdated. The Germans never expected it because their own analysis said it should not matter that much. They never adapted to it because adaptation would have required industrial capacity they did not possess and time they did not have. And they never recovered from it because every small tactical defeat compounded into operational setbacks that compounded into strategic collapse. The age of the bolt-action rifle ended in the frozen forests of the Ardennes, in the hedgerows of Normandy, in the rubbled streets of German cities. It ended because the mathematics of reload time, that 12 to 17-second differential between American and German riflemen, multiplied across millions of individual combat encounters to deliver tactical advantage at the most fundamental level of warfare, one soldier with his rifle against another soldier with his rifle. When that basic equation tilted decisively toward one side through technological superiority, no amount of tactical skill or operational brilliance could compensate at the strategic level. Private Frank Vukasin, pressed against that stone wall in Hauffalize on December 16, 1944, probably did not think about industrial production statistics or tactical doctrine. He thought about staying alive. But the 3 seconds it took him to reload his M1 Garand versus the 15 seconds German soldiers facing him needed to reload their Kar98k rifles meant Vukasin had a vastly better chance of seeing December 17th. That simple mathematical reality, repeated in every firefight where Americans faced Germans, helped decide the outcome of the war in Western Europe. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.